You know, this Christmas time, as I've been looking at the nativity scene, I'm thinking about the unlikely heroes. Well, as I look at the nativity scene, I see another unlikely hero. Is the guy who's always overlooked, and his name is Joseph. So as I set out my nativity scene, I know full well where I'm putting Mary and Jesus. Mary and Jesus are right there up front and centre. I've got the wise men and the shepherds and got the angel up top, and I know where to put everyone. But this little man, this little dude, I always never know where to put him. I kind of plonk him in a corner and think, oh, it doesn't really work there, or I never quite know where to put Joseph. He's the random guy in the scene, or so he may appear. I often think about the movie extra. You know, in the movie, you've got like your main characters, the main stars right up front and centre, but then around the back, you've got the bustling crowds who are the movie extras. And for me, for many years, Joseph was that. He was the movie extra. Until I began to really look at his life and study Joseph. And it was all because of where I was putting him, right on the nativity scene. So with Joseph, he comes along and maybe he thinks he's there by accident. I mean, Mary's clearly got a clear purpose from God as she's the one now pregnant with Jesus. But I wonder if Joseph felt like the extra in the movie, the one who was there by accident just because he just so happened to be Mary's boyfriend at the time. But you see, God had chosen Joseph just as much as God had chosen Mary. He chose both of them to be the ones that together would raise Jesus as a tiny boy. And that got me really beginning to think. You see, I don't know about you, but sometimes in life I feel that way. I look around and I know everybody else has got clear direction on their life and I know what they're meant to do, but sometimes in moments I feel like that just tag along person. I feel like, oh well, my husband's this, that or the other, but well, I'm just the one who slots into the background. But you know what? God's got a plan and a purpose for your life, just as he did with Joseph. So I wanted to look at Joseph for a few moments with you today to see what we can learn from this beautiful nativity scene. Firstly, Joseph is a man who really loves God and he hears God in his dreams. So when he first finds out about Mary, his initial reaction is to put her away discreetly. He loves her, and so he doesn't want to humiliate her or publicly disgrace her. And so he plans to very privately put her away when he finds out that she's pregnant. But he has a dream, and an angel speaks to him in a dream. And in the dream, Joseph's told that Mary's conceived by the Holy Spirit. And so when he wakes up, he immediately responds and he immediately marries Mary. Now in that moment, Joseph's putting his own reputation on the line by obeying what's said in this dream. Joseph's own reputation here is at stake. Imagine the scandal if people were to find out that Mary was pregnant before they were married. Quite the scandal. But Joseph puts his own reputation aside and chooses to obey God. He obeys the dream and marries Mary. But it doesn't end there. You see, Joseph then has a second dream. All of a sudden, Joseph's his own man. And in that day and age, a woman marrying into Joseph, he had got his own business already sorted out. Joseph set up, he's this carpenter, he's doing fine. And Mary's going to marry into his world. But all of a sudden, after this first dream, Joseph suddenly, his centre of gravity changes as all of a sudden his life now revolves around this little baby. His whole life doesn't revolve around him anymore. It revolves around baby Jesus. And then Joseph has this second dream. And in this second dream, it says in Matthew chapter 2 and verse 13, it says this. Now when they had departed, this was the wise men, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, arise, take the young child and his mother, and flee to Egypt. Stay there until I bring you word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. Yet again, as soon as he wakes up from the dream, once again, Joseph obeys the prompting of the Holy Spirit. He listens to what God is saying to him and immediately responds again. So the first time he responds and he puts his own reputation on the line, this time he responds by having to move away. He goes to Egypt, a country where he doesn't even speak the same language. Suddenly he's a refugee in Egypt, and he stays there. Historians believe anything from a year up to a maximum of 2 years, moves his whole life, moves his whole family, because God told him to in a dream. And he gives up all his own plans, all his own desires, to look after this baby that's been entrusted into his care. We then carry on reading that Joseph has a third dream. Once Herod dies, an angel speaks to Joseph again to say, move back, but not to the place where he was originally from. This time he goes back to Galilee. Again and again, Joseph moves in obedience. He steps out again and again to obey what's being said to him in these dreams. What I find interesting is here's Joseph, a self-employed man. He's a carpenter. We all know, if you run your own business, we all know the importance of word of mouth and speaking to people, and you drum up your own business through building a good reputation and through word of mouth and relationships. And in Joseph's day, there was no websites, there was no LinkedIn account, there was no social media to drum up the business. It was all through word of mouth and relationship. And so by Joseph moving again and again, he was jeopardizing his own business, his own finances. But again and again, we see Joseph step out in simple obedience. And that's the key. But in doing so, Joseph becomes a very central figure in this nativity story. He's no movie extra. He's no behind the scenes guy. He's a very central figure through this nativity series. Also, when I look at the nativity, I'm blown away at the contrast. You see, you've got angels, but you've also got shepherds. You've got kings bringing their gifts, or wise men bringing their gifts, but you've got the simple shepherd coming with his gift too. You've got angelic voices speaking and stars directing people to come to this amazing scene. But at the same time, this amazing scene is just a messy stable. There was no room for Jesus. It was just a barn stable where there would have been animals and dirt. And it's this contrast of the ordinary and the extraordinary. And the beautiful thing, as I look at the nativity scene and I see both the miraculous and the very ordinary, it's the same in our lives too. We'll go through seasons of incredible breakthroughs and miracles and God doing amazing things. But at the same time, probably about 90% of our life is just the ordinary day in, day out of living our lives well, living an honourable life just like Joseph did, simply obeying from day to day just like Joseph did, being willing to step out even if it jeopardises our own reputation or our own businesses, just like Joseph did. See, I look at this scene and I see both incredible favour as there's angels there present. I mean, my goodness, there was no angel at my child's birth. And that for Joseph must have been complete confirmation that really is the Holy Spirit that brought forth this precious baby that he's now being entrusted to raise. But equally, as well as the angels, Herod was trying to kill this same little baby. And there was severe persecution despite incredible blessing. And it's the same with me and you. We'll go through times of incredible blessings, and that's wonderful. But equally, life will throw us some curveballs sometimes, and there'll be times of persecution and times of trials and testing. And I want to encourage you to guard your heart through every season. Guard your heart as much in the miraculous seasons as you do in the seasons of testing and persecution. You see, you can get a bad loser, but equally you can get a bad winner too. Watch your heart in both seasons. Guard your heart in the times of blessing and guard your heart in the times of persecution. With Joseph, we see him bring through his family well, both through blessing and through persecution. Why? Because he simply obeys. He follows the prompting of the Holy Spirit and he obeys what God is asking him to do. This Christmas time, let me encourage you to make Jesus central in your life. Joseph was the centre of his world until Jesus came along, and then suddenly everything revolved around Jesus. In the same way, let me encourage you this Christmas, let everything in your life revolve around Christ. Let him be the central figure in your life. And as you simply obey like Joseph did, you too will begin to walk in the plans and purposes that God has for your life too. I pray this Christmas time that as you look at your nativity scene, God will highlight truths to your life too. Have a wonderful Christmas and God bless.